All right, well, good morning, everyone. I hope life is great. It's a Friday morning. It's rainy here in Boston. I'm sure a lot of you guys are working from home because who goes into the office on a Friday anymore? And we're going to do the normal here. What's up, Manny? So the normal is we're going to give you the top five rundown, then our three favorite posts, and then we're going to close it with three dad jokes and then a review of a blog recently written about going through hell. So let's go with the first top five stories. Just a quick rundown of what that's going to be: the 10 best housing markets, the 10 best jobs to have, Section 8 housing, then how are cap rates, like, can somebody please explain those? And then more discussions along office to multifamily conversion. So that's going to be the stories that we're going to get into. But first, we always do our favorite thing, the LinkedIn poll. And this week's LinkedIn poll is tied to the question of, if you had no money and you needed some liquidity, knowing that your savings and checking account is already tapped out, what would be your next best option? And the question, the options were a 401k retirement account, a second mortgage against your home, you create a side hustle to earn it, or something else. So, would love to hear what you believe is the right option for you in your personal situation. Yeah, just let me know. So let's get right into it now. The 10 best housing markets. And again, if you're watching on Instagram, you're not going to get to see any of this stuff. If you are on Facebook, Twitter, or X, sorry, YouTube, and LinkedIn, you're going to get to see all this. So now we are into the fun part. And the fun part is always, and I got to be able to see myself on the screen here. So my apologies. So the 10 best housing markets, and as you can see with this image here, one of my favorite cities is there, Cincinnati, but not just Cincinnati. Ohio is crushing it. Maybe all those advertisements of Ohio is jobs, is Ohio is great. Like, damn, maybe there is something to that. So I've taken a lot of great pride in my home state here. And then you also have Indianapolis. So that corridor is a really powerful impact with 4 out of the top 10. You got a few down in Florida as well. But that's a pretty, attractive number for a lot of people trying to find good housing options. And what this housing report actually means is just shows, like, it's an analysis that's a combination of various things, like the home value and the appreciation, the average time it takes to sell, along with the relationship of job growth. Now, you'll notice the majority of those markets do have good job growth, but Florida, that's more for retirement community type purposes, and that's where people are trying to avoid things such as state income taxes. So it's not always about job growth, but it's certainly a very interesting story. And something you can look into in more detail. So the next one we're going to get into is cap rates and why they keep climbing. So I threw up on the screen what the calculation is for a cap rate, and it's really just the net operating income divided by the value. That's it. That's your cap rate. And really, if you're trying to sell a property, you want to have a smaller cap rate. If you're trying to buy a property, you want to buy at a higher cap rate and then make it more attractive by shrinking down that cap rate. So that's how you generate a lot of money. How you do well on cap rates, you just get really strong on maximizing your revenue and minimizing your expenses. That sounds easier than it is. Because in the past couple of years, we've seen as interest rates have expanded, cap rates have also inherently expanded as well. And we saw in Q4, cap rates did expand. Now we're hoping that the market will eventually start to change, and all indications suggest that in the second half of 2024, that the markets will start to have shrinking cap rates. But if we just use, for instance, Class A multifamily properties, the premium type properties out there, there's been a noticeable decrease in things like the average rental increase. It went from like 4.5% down to like 2.5%. The IRRs, or the unlevered IRRs, went from 5.79 to like 7.68. And the going in cap rates went from like 3.3 or 3.4% up to like 5.1%. So that's 170 basis points, or 1.7%. That's huge. Like, a lot of time when we're trying to be conservative in underwriting assumptions, we take things up like 150 basis points from when we enter in. This is already exceeding that, which is really, really crazy. And again, we expect cap rates to come back down to reality with interest rates, but it's just something to be conscientious of, because cap rates drive a lot of the value that you're able to derive in the multifamily space. So that's the discussion on cap rate. Now, a few people have started reaching out to me because I've been talking about affordable housing. And so They're just like, is affordable housing Section 8 housing and all that stuff. And so what I wanted to share with you, because I am by no means an expert in this space, but Janover, who's a publicly licensed group, and is actually traded on the stock market, they actually wrote a really interesting blog in regards to Section 8 housing and just provides a lot of good details about it. I strongly suggest you actually check that out. But to give you guys kind of a top line overview of what is Section 8 housing, it's a federally subsidized program, and I think it supports about 5 million households in the United States. It's been around since the 1970s, so it's here to stay, and it's been here for a while. And the whole purpose is trying to create make housing accessible for low-income families across America. And they do this by directly actually making rental payments to the landlords. So it's not like they're paying it to the tenant and the tenant's supposed to pay it to the landlords. No, it's a direct payment to the landlords, which is a really nice thing, because commonly if you are a landlord in a B and C class community, one of the biggest challenges you get is people not paying the rent on time or paying the rent period, and then you have to do an eviction process. So if you're actually taking Section 8 vouchers, if you're getting that direct payment from the government, it's actually nice because you're guaranteed that payment. Now, that's the positive. The drawback is certainly, well, it can sometimes be challenging managing Section 8 tenants, and not to mention the paperwork. It can really be a pain in the ass to get set up for HUD and all that. So there's pros and cons to it, but something that, at least if you're interested in the Section 8 housing, remember, you're actually helping people get affordable housing, and you're actually getting guaranteed that payment from the government. So something to keep in mind if you are interested in, helping people while still being a real estate owner. Okay, so the next one I want to go into is office space. And yeah, office sector has been getting crushed in the past couple of years, ever since COVID came about, and there's a lot of indicators that this is not really going to go away anytime soon, because now the new way of living, especially for millennials and Gen Zs, we're not going to be in the office every damn day, and so a lot of companies are restructuring how they approach the return to work. Now, although there's an increase of people returning to work, there is still an increase of more office spaces being vacant and needing a massive revamp to better support the loan and the outstanding debt payments. And where a lot of people are seeing the most value is, you guessed it, converting to multifamily. And just within the last 4 years, we've actually seen a 4x increase from, I think it was like 12,500 units in 2021 now to expected 55,000 in 2024, getting converted from office to multifamily. And that represents about 40% or so of the total apartments in future adaptive reuse. That's a pretty sizable part. Another interesting thing about this is the offices that are getting converted are about 20 years younger than what they're historically at. I think it's like 70 years or something like that. So this is just showing that there's a ton of indicators that are moving there. If you live in places like Washington, D.C., Dallas, and I believe New York, those are the 3 biggest cities right now seeing office to multifamily conversion. So be on the lookout if you're in those markets, but also be on the lookout if you're in any local market where you're seeing less return to work or physical office space. All right, now we're going to move into the final of the 5 big stories, and that's talking about the best jobs. And, U.S. News and World Report, that group, they have come out with the 100 best jobs. And they base this on a number of things. It's salary, potential job growth, and other factors such as the types of occupations. And it might come as no surprise, but medical and STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math, those were far and away the best jobs to have per U.S. News and World Report. Nurse practitioner claimed the number 1 spot again, just because of the 6-figure type salary that you get, along with a good work-life balance. And then there's new things that emerge on there. I think there's an actuary, a data scientist, and speech language pathologist were 3 things that entered into the top 10. But again, check it out, see where your profession lines up. If you think that's an incorrect ranking of it, well, talk to U.S. News and World Report, not me. But anyhow, I thought that rather interesting. And hopefully you are enjoying your profession, and hopefully you are gainfully employed, because we know the market is tough out there right now. So if you are unemployed, we wish you the best and trying to get employed. All right, so that was our top 5 news stories. Again, just to give you a quick rundown before I shift into the top 3 social posts that I enjoyed. So that first one was the best housing markets. Shout out to Ohio for crushing it again. why cap rates keep climbing, an explanation of Section 8, the office to multifamily conversion, and then the 10 best jobs to have. So now let's get into my 3 favorite social posts of this week. And this guy, I think you know, Grant Cardone. I love referencing him. He is very polarizing. A lot of people hate him. A lot of people love him. Yeah, I don't think anybody likes him in between. So I will say I love him. I think he's very inspirational. He's got at least he has an opinion and he stands by it. And so what he laid out in this video, he laid out the 10 biggest scams out there because there's a lot of scams out there, unfortunately. We just may not see it. And so the 10 biggest scams that he highlighted, which I know this will infuriate some people, but one of the scams he mentioned, higher education. I live right down the street from Harvard and MIT. College tuition is absolutely ridiculous these days, and then you get locked into these college loans that are ridiculous, and it seems like it takes you 40 years to get out of them. And what value does that actually bring? There's a lot of value you can learn after college or even before college just by working and the school of life. And so, do I still believe college is important? Yes. But do I believe it should be overpriced as it is? No. And I think there should be a solution in place. But that's one of the things he said. Saving money. Yes, I would want to be careful on this. You definitely want to save money, but you want to actually invest the money. So don't put the money under a mattress is what he's really saying. Get it to work for you. Banks don't save money. Banks take that money and then they get to lend it at least a 10-to-1 ratio, ideally 30-to-1, up to 100-to-1. Meaning for every $1 they technically save, they get to lend out $100. That is how you make your money work for you. And we can do the same thing, just not at that scale because we're not a bank yet. And then buying a house. You know, Rich Dad, Poor Dad talked about this all the time, in which he talks about your house, if it's a single family house, is a liability, not an asset. Because if all of your cash flow goes away, then somebody's going to foreclose on you. And so it is actually not an asset. Just remember that. But we all deserve to have a single family house if you so want it to be. Just know it's not the best financial decision to make. Then he always talked about like credit card debt. You know, even Dave Ramsey talks about like don't have credit cards because you're never going to pay it back. Like if you have a credit card, which I do, I love spending money on credit cards, but I pay it back every single month so I don't get hit with those interest rates. That's how I like it. But something that you should be thinking about as well. Don't spend money on credit cards if you can't pay it back. There's too many get-rich-quick schemes out there. Be wary of that. If somebody's trying to overpromise on something, then just don't do it. You know, historically speaking, you're more in line with the market. So it's all about the jockey, not the horse. So work with the people that you trust that can get you to that desired end goal. And then there's another host of other things like the IRS and taxes. Like a lot of people think they have to always pay taxes. No, you have to properly structure your investments and returns so that you're minimizing your tax obligations. I believe we should be paying taxes to help with like local city governments, the roads, the schools, etc. But you shouldn't be overpaying in taxes. And just understand that they're going to say you should be paying all these taxes. But if you properly structure it, it is not illegal by working with the CPA to do the right tax planning for you. So there's a ton of other things that he talked about, but those are just some of the scams that he highlighted that I thought I would mention. Now, another one I want to go to, another rather big name out there, Gary V. And so what I love about this one, and I was conscientious about this myself when I was originally starting to talk to people, and candidly, I don't expect anybody to actually be watching this live at 10 a.m. on a Friday. You're probably actually working. So you're not going to tune in to Dan talk about his 10 news stories. I don't expect people to show up live. And hell, maybe people will tune in later to the recorded version that ultimately gets loaded up. But what I have continued to remind myself is a lot of this is just the value for me, and I hope it could be valuable for others. And if it just helps one person, then that's a big win. But what he's talking about is we all play with this mind of failure and how it will look into the eyes of somebody else. And yet what we always forget to think about is that everybody's too worried about themselves to worry about you. And so the image that he has on the screen is like the world before you fail at something and the world after you fail at something. We're so narcissistic to believe that the world revolves around us. That is not the case. People are living their own lives. So just go out and live your own life. Pursue whatever you want to pursue. Don't fear failure. Failure is actually a hell of a learning experience, so long as you take those learning experiences and avoid making those same failures again. So really like that on what Gary Vee hit on, because Gosh, it was beautiful. So now this story, this is just, it's a crazy story. And I'm surprised it hasn't gotten more viral. But it's actually, and this has nothing to do with real estate and money, but this is just a reality. Similar to the Bengals Bills game last year or 2 years ago now, in which Hamlin had a unfortunate heart attack on the field, essentially. This happened in South Dearborn, Indiana, at a high school boys basketball game. And this is where Google had those commercials of not all heroes wear capes. This hero is a 25-year-old student trainer that was sitting on the bench of South Dearborn basketball team, in which with like 5 minutes left in the game or whatever it was, a parent like 6 rows back from the team keeled over and started having a heart attack, and somebody started shouting, "We need a medic, we need a medic." Within like 20 seconds or something like that, the trainer had gotten out of his seat, grabbed the defibrillator or whatever it is, ripped open the person's shirt, and had started doing compressions to keep that person alive. So that is what you call a hero. It's nothing to do with real estate and money, but just recognize that you can actually make an impact on any person's life. And this 25-year-old trainer, he was going to just make sure the basketball players don't get injured. Little did he know he was going to save a life that day. So just always remember that. So let's now shift into the weekly blog, because this is another great one. And hey, maybe it's just the winter and how everybody seems to have seasonal affective disorder because it's such shorter days and with no light and a lot of cold and rain and snow. And so this is the quote from Winston Churchill: "If you're going through hell, keep going." And I'm going to take you back on a little story of 2006. So I was basically graduating high school. So now I just aged myself. But so I was still that young adult with no care in the world, just hanging out with my friends. And Rodney Atkins created a song called "If You're Going Through Hell." And this past week, I listened to Spotify while I'm doing a lot of work. And this past week, that song came on my Spotify country playlist. And it just reminded me, and I actually started listening to the message behind it. And so I decided I was going to break it down for you as to what exactly it means to me. And this is actually the Rodney Atkins music video, if you actually wanted to watch it at some point in time. That's again in my blog. You can click right into it and be able to watch it. But I'm going to break down what the verses say and then what they mean to me. So verse 1 is, well, those times when you feel like there's a sign there that says, there's a sign on your back that says, "I don't mind if you kick me. Seems like everybody has." Things go from bad to worse. You think they can't get worse than that, and then they do. So here's my perspective on that opening line, which of course that would sound so much better if I sang it, but nobody wants to hear me sing. And that feeling that Mr. Atkins talks about is a common human experience. Several factors contribute to this perception. And one of those is the negativity bias. Like humans, we are always believing that things are going to get worse. We always have this cognition that it's negative events, and that negative bias prominently leads to more perception of things getting worse. There's also that selective attention. During challenging times, we tend to focus on the negative aspects of our lives instead of the positive ones. So I try to journal to try and offset the negative with the positive things. Cognitive distortion is another thing that therapists will talk to you about. It contributes to that feelings of things continually getting worse. There's that confirmation bias. We all love confirmation bias, whether it's a positive or a negative, but it seems like when you're going through hell that you just want to continue to say, "Oh God, another crappy day." And that's just the negative feelings that you don't really want to have to continue going on in your life. So that's kind of the first one. Now we got verse 2. Let me find the lyrics on that one. "You step off the straight and narrow, and you don't know where you are. Use the needle of your compass to sew up your broken heart. Ask directions from a genie in a bottle of Jim Beam, and she lies to you. That's when you learn the truth." And from this one, the expression of "you step off the straight and narrow, and you don't know where you are," it's a metaphorical way of saying that when you deviate from the conventional or morally upright path, you may find yourself in unfamiliar or uncertain territory. And the straight and narrow is often used as a metaphor for the morally righteous and upright way of living or following a prescribed path. So when someone says you step off the straight and narrow and you don't know where you are, it suggests that you veer away from the virtuous or the conventional path, and you might lose your way, in your sense of direction and your purpose, and all of those things. It implies that straying from a well-defined and morally sound course can lead to confusion in your life and uncertainty and unexpected consequences and all those things. And that phrase underscores the idea that following a principled and ethical path provides a sense of just guidance and clarity, while deviating from it will result in a lot of misunderstanding. And so now we get into the chorus part. And the chorus part is, if you're going through hell, keep on going. Don't slow down. If you're scared, don't show it. You might get out before the devil even knows you're there. So if you're going through hell, keep on going. It's a quote contributed to, like I said, Winston Churchill. And that phrase implies that during difficult or challenging times, one should persevere and continue moving forward rather than giving up. Like, you can't just throw up your hands and be like, oh, somebody else, Jesus take the wheel, like that other country song is. In other words, it suggests that facing challenges head on and persisting through tough situations, it's a better approach than getting stuck and giving up. And so it's all about facing adversity, having resilience, determination to face those difficulties. All right, we're going to move into verse 3 because I actually got to hop here for another meeting. So I've been deep down in the darkness. I've been down to my last match, felt 100 different demons breathing fire down my back. And I knew that if I stumbled, I'd fall right into the trap they were laying. Yeah. But the good news is, this is terrible. Hey there. But the good news is there's angels everywhere out on the street holding out a hand to pull you back up on your feet. The one that's you've been dragging for so long, you're on your knees, you might as well be praying. Guess what I'm saying? So again, this is it sounds so much better in a country song than me trying to read the country lyrics. But the perspective in this one is really, there are people out there trying to pull you back up on your feet. That conveys the idea that there's angels around us, but it's not just angels. There's other people, and more people are willing to try and help you and support you during difficult times if you just know to ask. That's our biggest thing, is all of us fear to ask for help. And those people that may be offering assistance and encouragement or guidance that help you recover from the difficult situations might be a friend, a family member, a mentor. But the sentiment is, it's one of encouragement and reassurance, reminding the listener in this situation that they're not alone and that there are people who genuinely do care about you and your well-being and are willing to help you stand strong throughout the most difficult times. So then let's get through the final part of the chorus as he closes out the sign of, you're going through hell, keep on going, don't slow down. If you're scared, don't show it. You might make it out before the devil even knows you're there. Face that fire, walk right through it. You might make it out before the devil is there. All right, so that's the end of it. I want you to listen to that song though. But again, the perspective here, if you're going through hell right now, I'm sorry if you are. We've all been there. I've personally gone through hell. Hell, I'm probably still going through hell. But that doesn't define your journey. There's going to be difficult times in life, and you have to take kind of a glass half full approach, because life is going to throw punches. I still like the Mike Tyson line of, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. Well, this is your chance to have a plan and get punched in the face and then see how you react to it. So my suggested kind of next steps: one, stay strong. Take it one step at a time. This too shall pass. Just remember that, like, there is an end in sight, although the light at the end of the tunnel may seem far away. Reach out for support. Do not be afraid to ask, but you have to take that initial step of just asking for help. Learn from it and grow. Don't treat it as a punishment. This is a great learning experience, and you have to remind yourself of that as you're going through health. Have self-compassion. Be kind to yourself. Recognize that mistakes will happen. You might have been the reason for getting into the situation, but understand it was a mistake, and we should learn from this. Focus on what you can control. There's things within your sphere of influence and things outside of your sphere of influence. And then celebrate the small wins, because little wins each day are going to lead to bigger wins in the future. And then be mindful and present. Try to meditate every single day if you can, or meditate twice a day, in the morning and evening. That's what I try to do. And again, remember, you're not alone. We are a world of 8 billion people. There's a lot of people suffering out there. Empathy. Recognize that others might be in a similar situation. Last but not least, if you do really need to talk to somebody about your mental health, reach out to a therapist. I know I'm personally proud that I have a mental health group here in Boston, because we want to touch and improve the lives of people more effectively in our community. So that's everything there. I wish you guys a great week, a weekend ahead of you. And if you ever have any questions or want to talk more about this, please reach out to me. I'm here when you need me. Take care. Bye.